Welcome, friends, to a late night edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. Guys and girls, you know the drill. I am a retired New York City police detective, and if you like all things true crime related from that police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when he's available, when we go live or upload another video. Hey, tonight I want to talk to you about the sources and the new information or the information that's being put out on the Idaho 4 murder case. It's causing a lot of confusion. It's causing a lot of people to run down rabbit holes that they normally wouldn't run down. And I want to talk to you guys about it tonight. I want to get your feeling live from the chat and from folks who have sent in messages on Crime Time with DutyRon. So let me just say thank you to you, the Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all the folks who replay, view our live streams, and the people who question and engage in the comment section down below. You guys are what makes this live streaming and Crime Time with DutyRon community a great place. And I give thanks and praise to each and every one of you. Hey, I'm using a different application tonight. I'm using the Melon app, which is part of Streamlabs, not StreamYard. This is a Streamlabs app. Let me know what you think of the StreamYard, Streamlabs Melon app. It's a new program that I'm testing out, and I want to see how that goes tonight. So let's say hello to a couple people. I want to show JC and say hi to you. Thank you for joining Crime on a Dime. Good to see you and everybody here on this live stream. So, hey, by a show of hands, who has, like myself and like Ed Wallace, who here has been noticing that, not just Banfield, Law and Crime Network, and a lot of the networks who are following this Idaho quadruple murder case. Listen, we want to keep Ethan, Zana, Kaylee, and Maddie and their families in our thoughts and prayers. They're the victims. They are what's most important here. So, just by a show of hands, who has been seeing and hearing a lot of this information? And when they use the word sources, it kind of gets my it raises my eyebrows a little bit, because when you're using sources that are unverified, are these sources law enforcement? Are they retired law enforcement? Are they people who have been in this crime scene? Example, the college students. We heard from, again, online rumors that there was multiple people at the location, and some of this stuff has been verified, that there were a lot of college friends and people that were coming into that home. So at the end of the day, folks, where are these sources coming from? Who are these sources? And I know that folks like News and Nation and all the major outlets, they rely on sources, but they're supposed to vet them. They're supposed to vet these sources, and unfortunately, if you don't vet the sources, now you have information that's out there that can be hurtful to the case. And that's my main concern, is you don't want to hurt these cases. And Sergeant George Eshok, he says, I would never trust online rumors. I always recommend to my friends, the people who I care about, the people who I feel have their hearts in this in all cases. I always say, go by 100% vetted sources. And I tell people, rely on what you hear from law enforcement. Rely on what you hear from the district attorneys. When you rely on Facebook and some of these other outlets, you could be led down rabbit holes that could put you into a deep, dark place. And hey, by a show of hands, who in the chat here has been led into deep, dark places? And be honest, I'm going to put my hand up, because early on in my career of online, I too was, look, I even have my Jagaloon sign up. I too have been led to deep, dark places, and it's unfortunate. It really is. It's not a good look. It's not a good place to be. And at the end of the day, we've all been led down those roads. I want to play a little piece. It's just a couple of minutes long. It's Law and Crime, and it was just a couple of hours ago. Jesse Weber released this information, and he, in the first 30 seconds, he says sources. So a lot of these things that I'm going to play for you tonight, you're going to hear them say sources. And these are people who should not be giving out information if they really have justice at the forefront. If they want justice for these 4 victims and their families, then the people who use these sources should be thinking about not themselves and not their 5 minutes of fame, and not putting out information that, listen, a gag order is in place for a good reason. It's not to be mean. It's not to be desensitizing the court system and the prosecution and the law team that's behind this trial for Brian Kohberger. He's innocent until proven guilty. The gag order is in place so he can have a fair and impartial trial. He can have a trial of a jury by his peers without leaked information. And that's the important part. So we lose sight of that. And that's the problem here. So let me add this onto the stream, and let's play this little piece. This is just a couple hours ago.
And welcome back, everybody. We have an update for you right now on the murder of 4 University of Idaho students. A source has provided more information about why a roommate who allegedly...
A source. Let me put it back a second, and I won't do it anymore. I'll let you guys listen to the rest of this, but listen up. A source.
Students. A source has provided more information about why a roommate who allegedly saw the murderer didn't call 911 right away. The roommate, referred to as DM in the probable cause affidavit, told the source that she thought noises she heard were from people in the house partying late into the night. The house on King Road was known for having lots of people in and out at all hours. 4 people were stabbed to death inside of that home in November, where 2 roommates actually survived. Now, DM, one of those roommates, told police that she opened her bedroom door at one point and saw a man walking by her wearing all black and a mask. She told the source that she thought he must be a guest of one of the other roommates. He walked right past her, and she locked herself in a room. Now, no one called 911 until lunchtime the next day. Police ended up arresting Brian Kohberger, a doctoral student at nearby Washington State University, more than a month after the murder, saying he was the man who committed the brutal stabbings. DM's memory now seems to be a bit different from what she told investigators, because in her latest recollection, she wasn't frightened by the random man in the hallway. But you know what? Memory can be a tricky thing. So we spoke with an expert about how memories can change over time.
Well, you don't need a PhD to know that as time passes, our memories begin to fade.
Let me just also, hold on. I want to put myself back on the screen here. Let me just say this, okay? Before this professor talks here, Dr. Loftus, I'm botching her name, Loftus. Before I put her back on, let me just say this, okay? This is coming from a source, right? We don't know if this is true or not. A source told Law and Crime Network that DM story has changed. In my eyes, I say that could possibly be bullshit. That could be just a fake book up statement. That could be a statement to just rile up the conspiracy theorists. That could just be something to derail what's true. So let's think about this for a minute. Let's put our thinking caps on, right? It's coming from a source. So
they become weaker. But what's not so much a matter of common sense is that weakening memory that's fading with the passage of time becomes more and more vulnerable to potential contamination. And contamination can happen when you get suggestive information from other sources, if you're questioned in a biased or leading fashion. If you overhear other people talk about what happened, it can affect you. But we also can alter our own memories. That's called autosuggestion. We think about what might have happened, what probably happened, what could have happened, and sometimes those what could have become what did.
And we've also learned that suspect Brian Kohberger was experiencing some workplace drama around the time of the murders. He was apparently fired from his position as a teaching assistant at WSU.
Again, hold on. I got to put myself back on here. I'm working with a new app. It's called Melon. So forgive me if I'm a little bit all over the place with clicking on and off. Again, this story about Brian Kohberger, we do not have official confirmation from Washington State University, from law enforcement, because there's a gag order in place. This is now all bull. That is potential. I think I'm bleeping the bad words out. I said bull S. So this is potential bull S that is being spewed by sources. And there's all different stories about where the sources are coming from. A person from TikTok, some tarot card reader, some psychic, I don't give a and I said the F word there, where the source is coming from. As far as I'm concerned, if I don't hear it from a prosecution at trial, or there's a gag order, so we ain't going to hear it from anybody. And until I hear it, come fast forward past June 26th, then in my eyes, it's all just,
oh, hell no.
And it's a big fat.
Oh, hell no.
All right. So let's let the rest of this play.
News Nation got a copy of the alleged termination letter, and Kohberger was a TA.
Now, this copy of this termination letter, and I promised you guys that I wasn't going to keep stopping this. This, again, is coming from a potential source that's unverified, that is undocumented, that we, as the American citizens and the citizens of the world, are supposed to take this as Bible. I'm not taking it as Bible. I'm not taking it as Bible. And at the end of the day, you guys can do whatever you want to do. But here on Crime Time with DutyRon, I only go with what is coming from verified, legitimate sources, not some source that's unnamed, that's afraid to come forward. And you know what? The people who are afraid to come forward, hold on, I got to put myself back on for this. The people that are afraid to come forward, these sources, is because it's illegal. And they would be locked up for criminal contempt of court. Criminal contempt of court. It's illegal to put out information about this trial. No information is supposed to get out about the evidence and surrounding things in this trial. So that's why these sources are unverified and not to be named. You're keeping it close to the vest. As News Nation, I heard say tonight, Banfield said, I'm keeping this close to the vest. Well, shame on you. You shouldn't be putting it out. I'm still pissed at her. I used to have a lot of respect for her, but nowadays it's diminished quite a bit. Oy vey.
With the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology. The letter states that Kohberger had an altercation with a professor in September where he was put on an improvement plan, but evidently had another altercation with the same professor in December. Before Kohberger went to Pennsylvania to stay with his parents for the Christmas holiday, he was informed about his termination. Experts told News Nation that problems of the job could have been triggering for him. So, Brian, a lot to talk about here. The roommate's explanation of seeing who she believed to be Kohberger and why she didn't call 911 right away. How does that affect the case?
So two things, Jesse. Even from her first kind of explanation as what happened, when she said she opened the door and saw the person pass by, she doesn't say how far she opens that door. I think, and I suspect it was just a crack. I think the defense can hop on that. But the second part is this whole memory issue. If her memory seems to be contaminated with her own thoughts or suggestive questioning and going back and forth like this, don't forget her memory connects us to the bushy eyebrows, connects us to where he stepped supposedly for that footprint, and also connects to his size. These are big parts of the affidavit that led to the arrest and could be big parts of this case that identifies Kohberger as the suspect. If they can shake up, they being the defense, her memory of the events, it could be detrimental for the prosecution's case.
Oh, I agree with you. But Terry, everyone's been looking for a motive about why he might have done this or allegedly done this. Problems at work, termination, could that be a factor?
Absolutely. Listen, the murders occurred November 13th. And he really had the first altercation in September. And he was supposed to be on an improvement plan, and he failed that improvement plan. And ultimately, November 2nd was when he got that plan. And that was right before the murder. So I definitely think he was wondering whether or not he was going to be fired. And he was worried about his job. He was worried about the fact he may not actually get his PhD, and this could have been a triggering factor to the murder. Now, obviously, he didn't get terminated till after the murders, but all of this must have been going through his mind. And I think it just escalated because he continued to have other altercations even after the murders.
Yeah, we have the how, we have the when, we have the where. It is the why that is that.
Oy vey, I tell you. Yeah, it's frustrating to say the least, because again, all of these news outlets, they are going to see that each other are putting this stuff out. They're all going to look at what each other are doing and say, oh, this is good. This is getting some traction. Let's talk about this. Tom Cusinelli, good to see you in the chat. Thank you for joining. A fellow brother in blue from the NYPD. Always great to have my brothers in blue here on Crime Time with DutyRon. All right, listen. So our good friend Andrea from Burkhart Law, she did a video about a week ago, maybe a little bit longer. Don't crucify me on the dates, but she did a video on cell tower data and how important that is going to be in this case. She brought it up because she's a criminal defense attorney. You know, she's working on appeals at the moment, and that's what she's specializing in. But our friend at Burkhart Law, she's a smarty pants. And I always like to say that. She's a smarty pants. I'm saying it in a good way. She did a piece on cell phone tower data, and there was a lot of info in there, and it made me do some research. And I called up a couple of my computer crime friends, and there is so much technology available for cell phone pings and triangulation and all different locating devices. We had Tommy from Autocrime talk about the Bluetooth device and the infotainment system. In many cases that we covered, you know, we talked about it in several of the different cases. But Banfield did have a piece, and you know what? Again, as much as I'm livid and pissed off at the things that she's doing, there's certain times that she brings up good, valid points. But when you talk about every single time you go live or you do a program and you talk about sources that are unverified, it just gets my blood boiling, you know. So I want to queue up this Bluetooth and speculation on Bluetooth. She had an expert on, and the guy did say some really good stuff. And I want to just show that piece to you guys because I think it's important in this case, because we are going to be hearing a lot about Bluetooth at the homicide location at 1122 King Road. We're going to hear about it with the cell towers between Pullman, Washington, and Moscow, Idaho, which is just very limited. I did a little bit of research. There's not a lot of towers, but there is a lot of cell antennas. There's a difference between towers and antennas and so forth. So this stuff does get really, really technical, and I'm not an expert at that, so I don't really like to talk on it. But I do want to show this piece that Banfield played because she had a good expert on talking about cell phone stuff, because we're going to hear about this when the trial eventually commences. So let me just play this for you guys. And again, it's from Banfield, but this was something that I think it's worth us taking a listen to.
When I said I want to get into the nitty gritty, that's Clark Walton's space. He is a principal forensics and cybersecurity expert for Reliance Forensics. He's board certified in data security.
Thank you, Wolf's Angel, for becoming a DutyRon Bronze member. Thank you.
He's a former cybersecurity analyst for the CIA. He's also a former prosecuting attorney. Mwah, chef's kiss. You are perfect, Clark, for this.
Huh.
Get me sort of on and off the ledge on this, because I always want to know that there's lots of evidence if you're going to bring a guy.
Did she just give him a chef's kiss? Did I just hear that right? I was doing something and I didn't hear that. Did I hear that correct? A chef's kiss? Wow.
And charge him with quadruple murder. I want to know that there's lots of really good evidence. This would seem like it would put a guy right in the room alongside the DNA on the knife sheath. But why might it not work? Let's just look at the other side. Why might this not work?
Right. So your phone, as you know, when you're walking around with it, it is trying to talk to the rest of the world any number of ways, right?
So now this is the kind of reporting that I really like. I like to get educated and information, and I think there's quite a bit of good information that he puts out here. So we'll listen to this, and then we'll end this little piece, because then she starts talking at the back end of it. But we're going to listen to what he has to say.
Right. Bluetooth, as you know, when you're walking around with it, it is trying to talk to the rest of the world any number of ways, right? Bluetooth and your cellular antenna and near field communication. But it doesn't necessarily mean that those attempted handshakes that you just referenced are necessarily being recorded. Not every single action that your phone takes is necessarily going to stick with that phone. If a forensic examiner were to look at it days, weeks, months later, yes, that handshake could have occurred, but is there going to be a record of it on the device that a forensic examiner can pull back?
Okay, so let me take that one step further, and I'm going to just be full disclosure here. I am a complete idiot when it comes to this stuff. I have to hit all the buttons 100 times and then reset just to get something to work. But I do know this, my phone is connected to my Bluetooth speaker, and my phone knows when I go from portrait to landscape, and it keeps that as a record, as I learned in the Murdaugh trial. What if Kaylee's speaker was connected to her phone? Because presumably they're all up on the third floor, right? You're going to have your phone upstairs when you go to bed, even if you're 50 feet away in the other bedroom. Will that perhaps keep a record?
That would keep a record. And so have you ever noticed, you'll spend a night in a hotel and you'll not come back to that hotel for months, and then you'll go back to that hotel and it will automatically connect your phone back to Wi-Fi like you'd been there the day before. Your iPhone does keep a record of what Wi-Fi networks you've connected to, certain information about those networks, the name, the password, the last date and time, importantly, potentially for this case, the last date and time that phone was connected to that Wi-Fi network. And the same works for Bluetooth as well. It keeps a listing of Bluetooth assets that you have connected to at a certain point in the past in time. So let's say hypothetically, at some point in the past, Kohberger's phone had initiated or completed a handshake with really any other device in proximity to that house, coming back in close proximity to that house, even if the phone were in airplane mode, as was pointed out, that Bluetooth connection may likely still be enabled, and that handshake could occur. That evidence would stay on the phone, and that's something that a forensic examiner could later take and say, yes, this phone was within Bluetooth communication of this speaker, this microwave, this thermostat, that type of thing at this point in time.
This is probably a yes or no. But if the speaker is turned off, does it still emit a Bluetooth signal, or is off?
Off is off.
When it comes to
off is off. Off is off.
Okay. How about the car? Let's talk about this 2015.
We had Tommy from the Autocrime NYPD Autocrime expert. He's a forensic autocrime specialist. He came on and spoke very strongly about the car. And you can go to my playlist and look at my autocrime specialist, Tommy, the detective Tommy from the Autocrime Squad. He's graced us a few times with his presence, and he is magnificent. So I'll link that down below in the description here, the Autocrime. He's going to talk a little bit about the car. Thank you, JC, for becoming a channel member. I'm highlighting that on the screen. Something I can't do with StreamYard. I mean, I could do it with the Melon app, but I can't do it with StreamYard.
Elantra. Some people have said they don't. Okay. How about the car? Let's talk about this 2015 Elantra. Some people have said they don't have the infotainment system. Some people have said they do. So maybe it's kind of, haphazard on the 2015. But if Kohberger gets into his Elantra with his phone, right? Because he's driving. We already know he had his phone with him because well, at least according to the authorities, he is driving out of Pullman or around, Pullman at 2:48, 2:47, I think I said the time was. Look, 2:47 a.m. And then he, hauls back in and is back online. He basically turns the phone back on or does whatever at 4:48 a.m. If he's in that car, is it going to handshake him to the car? Because right now we know an Elantra that belongs to him was at the murder scene, and a defense attorney will say, who was driving? Did you see him behind the wheel? But if his phone connected to his Bluetooth and went to the murder scene, now that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah, there may very likely be a record of that. I mean, the data that I've seen in the public record is based of where he was is based on the cell tower pinging, the location, which is much less accurate and much more, covers a greater area than the Bluetooth communication. Obviously, you have to be much closer to a device to ping off of that with your phone. And there are records of that kept in the device, in the phone. Sorry, I'm looking down at my iPhone here, I guess expecting it to do something. But yes, I mean, we have seen we've worked other types of cases, other types of homicides, cases where car accident cases, a lot of times you'll see a Bluetooth was activated and started playing music or something like that. And then a car accident occurs moments later. I mean, that's a fairly common thing to see.
It fascinates me to think that somebody could think, well, I'm just going to turn my phone off and I'll go dark. But that phone stayed more than likely light if it were connected to the car. And then that car continued on its merry way. So the footprint would continue even though the cell towers lost him. All of this allegations, he has the right to remain innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But man, this evidence, it's pretty fascinating.
So there you have it. I thought that was good. Again, we're critical of Banfield. She is capable of being a good reporter, but this source stuff is really pissing me off. It's pissing Ed Wallace off. It's anybody that's in the law enforcement field or in the criminal justice field. If I have any attorneys, I think Karen, Legal Minded Friends in the UK, Jess, the Mystery Mavid, Joey Brooklyn. Hey, Joey Brooklyn, good to see you, brother. Joe Murray, all the people who are criminal defense attorneys and so forth, and folks like myself and Ed Wallace and Phil Grimaldi, Sergeant Cannon, all of these people will tell you right off the bat, this stuff, although we're human beings and we want to hear it, we love to get information. Thank you for the super chat. Main Street Media has run a story from a woman named Gigi who sources, it's garbage. I won't even give her, I don't even like to give it credence because it's just garbage. But thank you for the super chat and thank you for that info. I appreciate it. A couple people have been texting me on the side here. Josh, I have the alert bot on, as you can see. So my thing is that the people who know what needs to be in place to get justice for these victims, Zaina, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie, this is not the picture of what you want to see. This is not what prosecution wants to see out there. They want, again, the gag order is there, not to be mean, not to hold back, not to let the press should realize, okay, we want to see justice for these victims' families, right? And the press should have the ethics to say to themselves, there's certain things that we should just wait on, or what I just highlighted here, that cell phone data story, that's a good story to put out there. That's a good educational piece of news information. Right? Get a computer crimes expert. Again, talk back to DNA or genealogists. They've covered it already, but if you have nothing else to talk about, then don't talk about it. So here I am tonight, just bringing you. Look, it's Saturday night. I wanted you guys to have a voice here to. Let me and Ed know what's on your mind. And here we are 30 minutes into this thing. And I can see from the chat what's on everybody's mind. It's frustration. As this title says here on this video, the Idaho, this Idaho murder case, news sources and the rumors, how it's getting confusing. It's getting people confused. If you sit and look at Fakebook and all of the great stuff that's out in Fakebook land, you're going to take yourself into deep, dark places. You're going to be up all night. Oy vey is right. You're going to be up all night. You're going to be thinking. Your mind is going to be racing. These sources, it's just sources, and exactly what it stated, unverified sources. If these sources happen to be retired or active law enforcement, I'm going to tell you right now, they should be brought in and they should be punished for this. They should either face charges of criminal contempt of court, or they should be punished on a job level. So $20 comes in to not built to break. Hell no, it's not what we want to see. I'll correct that for you. Thank you so much for the super love. I appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, this is not a good look. It's not a good look for anybody, but it's hurting the families. And you know what? Listen, one attorney in particular that's representing the families, right? Steve Gonzalez, attorney Shannon Gray, put something into the court. He put a rule, a request to be excluded from this gag order. I feel that would be a really, I mean, it's not going to happen. I already talked to a couple of attorneys about it. That would be a really bad thing, because if the families wanted to keep their daughters or their sons' names out there, they're out there no matter what. But I think that we're so close. You know, innocent until proven guilty, Brian Kohberger. We get that. But we're so close. Think about 60 days ago or whatever, you know, a month and a half ago, we didn't have a perp in custody, right? Everything prior to December 30th, we were all, we had nothing. We had nothing. And there was many of you who had a lot of humble pie to eat, because there was many of you that said, well, they're never going to, this is going to be a cold case. They're not going to ever get anybody into custody. They're never going to lock anybody up. It's just important that we are looking at getting to the finish line, and whether that finish line is in 2 years from now, 1 year from now, or 5 years from now. And I'm just making a very big, broad timeline. But whenever this trial starts, whether it's, you know, in 2024 or 2023 late or whatever, that's when it's showtime, and everything that's leading up to showtime cannot be desecrated. We can't have people going out there and shitting on the prosecution, shitting on the defense. Sorry about those bleeps. I know they're kind of loud, but you know, we can't have it. Danielle, thank you so much for the super love. So thank you for that. Sheba Dog shaking his hips says, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the super love. Much appreciated. So I have another piece that I want to show you guys. We went over the Bluetooth evidence. Andrea Burkhart from Burkhart Law, she talks about cell tower data. And I know that this may bore some of you guys, but I don't, it doesn't bore me, because when she talks about this stuff, she goes based on facts. I'm going to play just a little bit of her piece, and I'm going to link her channel in the description. Go and subscribe to Burkhart Law. But she talks about the cell data. And this, I'm telling you, this and much, much more, because all of the stuff in this probable cause affidavit is just a small slither. It was what they needed to get an arrest warrant issued by the judge, and that's it. They gave the most minimal amount of information. Mama Griffin, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Sassy Patriot, you know I love your screen name. Thank you for being here. Princess Mitch and all the mods, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It was just a slither of information. We are going to hear and see, once this trial commences, a treasure trove of electronic information, a treasure trove of evidence from the crime scene. And listen, for those of you who are being naysayers about, because Banfield was talking about it tonight, about evidence collection, and I'm going to play that right after this. Evidence collection in the beginning of this, once this murder was reported and police officers arrived on the scene and paramedics and so forth, there was chaos. There definitely was chaos, right? Because you don't know what you have. Is there a person passed out here? Is there, you know, people? There was lots of people on the scene, so there were chaos and there were missteps and there were things that happened. This stuff happens at almost every crime scene. People go in, including police, and trample into the crime scene. It doesn't mean that the case is over. It doesn't mean that this is a wrap. This is part of what happens with human nature. Dr. Ed Moskowitz and Julie, thank you for the super love. Appreciate you. They say, agree with you 100%. Thank you. It's chaos. And take it from me, I worked in the NYPD. We had 2,200 murders in the first year. When I was a rookie in 1991, there was 2,200 murders in the city of New York. That's in the 5 boroughs. In my borough alone, there was over 300 murders in the precinct that I worked at. There was 300 murders in my police station in the area that I covered in 1991. So as a rookie, I went from murder scene to murder scene all week. These things were happening at least several times a week where we were getting murders and homicides, all different variations of bloody crime scenes. And we didn't have PPE. We didn't have booties. I was lucky if I had rubber gloves. We would just go into a crime scene. We would see somebody shot and we would back out unless there was somebody that was needing medical aid. And we, as police officers, even back then in 1991, we weren't trained. We were trained in basic medical aid. So if somebody was shot in the head or somebody was shot and gravely wounded, we would call for an EMS, an ambulance, and ask them to rush to the location. And we would back out of there, you know? So, in the murders here at 1122 King Road, there was chaos. But that doesn't mean that this case is done. That doesn't mean that the defense is going to have a field day with it. Yes, they're going to bring up anything and everything that they can. But at the end of the day, this is not going to be their, this is not going to be their slam dunk, because many people were at the crime scene initially. Because we learned from the chief of police, from Chief Fry, that the first phone call he made was to the Idaho State Police Crime Lab, and they responded forthwith. So the Idaho State Crime Lab, we called the ambulance a bus. Did you call a bus, DutyRon? Yes, we would call an ambulance, and ambulances were called a bus. Thank you for pointing that out. So Matty Boy Sully, great to see you. Thank you for joining. I'm trying to get to the super chat. I saw one just go by. It's just a little weird on this new application for me to find the super chat. But thank you for the super love. Oh, there it is. Boom. Hold on. Where is it? There it is. Deborah Scott. Thank you so much for the super love. $5. We appreciate that. All right. I just want to make sure I'm caught up. So yes, this is what happens, right? But they made the right decision to make that phone call to the Idaho State Police Crime Lab, and they came on the scene and they collected the evidence. They collected all the evidence from the crime scene, and the FBI was involved early on and quickly. So again, the Idaho State Crime Lab, their experience, they know about all the protocols. And you saw a young police officer from the Moscow Police Department with a pad early on. He had a notepad, and what he was doing with that notepad was documenting everybody who came into that crime scene. And that's going to be the first officer on the scene at the trial. He's going to be called to testify. He's going to be asked who was in that crime scene and their credentials, and all of that's going to come out at trial, and you're going to see it. So let's listen to what Andrea has to say. She's awesome. She's going to talk to you about cell phone pings, and she's very smart, and she does her homework. So take a listen to criminal defense side, what they're going to use, what they're going to look at, and what could be brought up, cell phone data, and all kinds of cellular data here.
Given the circumstantial nature of this case, an important piece of the puzzle is the ability of law enforcement to place Brian Kohberger at the scene of the murders at the time that they took place. They've relied on historic cell site location information to make this connection. So we're going to take a look at how the defense is going to approach that evidence. One of the things that we learned from the probable cause affidavit is that once police began to narrow in on Brian Kohberger as a suspect, They got a search warrant for his cell phone records, specifically for the time frame of when the murders happened and approximately 24 hours on both sides. That information was then provided to an FBI technical analyst. And based on that review, police determined that the cell phone was using cellular resources within the cities of Moscow and Pullman and related areas in a way that tended to correspond with the movements of the white sedan that they had already identified as the suspect vehicle. So this was an important piece of the overall probable cause picture because although we can associate the white sedan potentially with these murders based on being on video, leaving the scene at a high rate of speed approximately after the murders occurred, that doesn't necessarily put Brian Kohberger behind the wheel. It's certainly possible somebody can borrow a car, somebody can steal a car. So being able to link his cell phone to the car is a very important piece of being able to connect Brian Kohberger with the car. Typically, your cell phone is pretty intimate device. Many of us have it on our bodies at most, if not all times of the day. There's a lot of information in there that you don't want some random person to get your phone and be able to scroll through your photos and your messages and things like that. So most of us take pretty strong steps to protect our phones, and we often have them on us at all times. So if the phone is in the same place as the car, that just makes it more likely that Brian Kohberger himself is also in the car during these time periods. And it forecloses an argument that, yes, maybe it was his car, but that doesn't mean you can put him behind the wheel. So taken at face value, this cell site location information looks pretty damning, but there's a lot that isn't said in the probable cause affidavit that could have a big effect on how significant this information is. And specifically, the probable cause affidavit doesn't tell us what exactly is the data that you're relying on, what is the methodology that you're using to trace the vehicle, and what is your confidence in the accuracy of the results that you're reaching. So these are things that defense attorneys are going to focus on. We're going to talk real quickly about how cell site location information works so that you can get an understanding of the types of holes that the defense is going to be looking for in this evidence. So in very simple terms, a cell phone acts a lot like a two-way radio. It periodically and regularly communicates with cell phone antennas in its area to evaluate the strength of the signals that are available, so that when you need to use your phone to make a call or get on the internet, whatever it is that you're doing, the phone is able to identify what's the strongest signal here to connect to. So it's that communication that is the historic cell site location information that police are relying on here. There's some important limitations on this information. So first off, you might think, well, if the phone is nearest to one tower, that tower is going to be giving the strongest signal. So if the phone connects to that tower, it means the phone is probably near that tower. That would be a faulty line of reasoning. And the reason why is because there are a lot of different factors that can affect which cell phone tower a phone will connect to. Things like weather can affect signal strength, things like call traffic, all kinds of other factors dealing with the capacity of the tower, the capacity of the phone. So a single connection to a single tower is not particularly strong evidence of location. So because of that, to use this type of information to really identify a person's location with pretty high specificity and reliability, police generally have to rely on one of two methods. One is to use GPS data. GPS data is using satellite triangulation. It goes, a bit above and beyond the cell towers. So GPS data, if they're able to get it very, very reliable, very precise. That tends to be, from my perspective as the defense lawyer, the best evidence of location that police can generally get. We didn't see anything about GPS data in the probable cause affidavit. So that tells us they probably weren't able to get that from his cell phone records. It is still possible that GPS data could be obtained from something like his vehicle's navigation system, or if they get the actual physical phone itself and can do extraction from the phone, they may be able to recover GPS data from that as well. But at least at this point, based on the probable cause affidavit, they don't have it. So that leaves us with the alternative method of triangulation. So the way that triangulation works is, as we've said, your phone is constantly trying to communicate with towers in the area. And so when it's got simultaneous communication going on with multiple towers, it's checking the signal from here, and it's comparing them to see which one is stronger. Then that information can be used to triangulate the position of the cell phone. And so typically, police are going to need either a simultaneous connection to at least 3 towers or a connection to at least 2 towers along with an angle of the connection with at least one of the towers. And so from there, it's really just basic trigonometry. They're able to figure out from that point where, within a relatively typically precise degree of certainty, where that cell phone is located. So the key point here is that with triangulation, to be able to place somebody's location fairly precisely and fairly accurately, the critical piece here is multiple simultaneous connections to different cell antennas. So this is very common in dense urban areas back on the East Coast, places like New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. You might have a cell antenna every other block. And a cell antenna can have a range of many, many miles. I think the longest I remember reading about is about 30 miles, which gives that antenna a coverage of approximately 2,700 square miles. So that's a pretty big area for a single antenna to be able to
But watch what happens here when she comes and circles back to Moscow, Idaho, and Pullman, Washington.
Communicate with cell phones. So if you have a lot of those really close together, then there's all kinds of communication happening with that cell phone, with every tower potentially it's within that tower's range. But that type of overlapping coverage is much less common in remote rural areas. And guys, Moscow, Idaho, it's pretty remote. If you haven't gone on Google Maps or Google Earth or something like that, look at Moscow, Idaho, and just start to zoom out. Because I think it's important, if you're not from this area, you may not have the perspective on how much wide open space there is out here with.
Now, I want you guys to understand this. I'm going to put myself back on quickly. She's from the area, not in Moscow, but she lives in Idaho, and her business practice, she's going to talk to you about her travels. And this is valuable information. I think it's so important right now, during the course of this time, during the gag order, is to listen to intelligent conversation like this. Let's get ourselves educated from people like that, people like Ed Wallace and myself, Police Off the Cuff with Bill Cannon and Phil and Professor Geary, and stay away from the jagaloons, because jagaloons will send you down a dirty, dark path of feces and urine. You don't want to drink a bowl of feces and urine. When you are listening to the jagaloons, that's what they're serving up for you. So let's listen to Andrea, who is a person from this area.
Absolutely nothing in it. I'll just tell a quick anecdote about when I drive from where I used to practice law in Walla Walla, Washington. If I were going to drive over to the Pullman area, approximately, an hour out of Walla Walla, you lose all cell phone coverage, and you're out of coverage for like 45 minutes, an hour until you get to the town of Colfax. So there are huge spaces out here that have no cell coverage whatsoever. So the point here is that there is a much greater likelihood in this situation than there would be if we were looking at murders in Washington, D.C. or New York, that they may not have the type of overlapping cell tower coverage that you really need to be able to perform a precise location analysis. And this raises red flags for me reading the probable cause affidavit because of this kind of vagueness of the language that is used. The cell phone utilized cellular resources. We don't know what that means.
See, this is a great she's breaking it down. This is from the probable cause affidavit, and it says the further review indicated that 8458 phone, that's Brian Kohberger's cell phone, the last four was 8458, utilized cellular resources. This is going to come out at trial. They're going to have to explain what the cellular resources are, and she's delving into that here.
Reading the probable cause affidavit because of this kind of vagueness of the language that is used. The cell phone utilized cellular resources. We don't know what that means. They're not telling us, is it using multiple tower resources, or are you just saying it pinged to a tower in that location? The problem is, if the phone just pinged to a tower in Moscow, we need to know what is the range of that tower in Moscow, because you can't triangulate a precise location from it. All it tells you is that the phone was within range of that tower at that time. And if that tower, it's probably not 2,700 square miles that it covers, but it could be 10, it could be 20, it could be 50. And that's not a really very precise location piece of data to be able to rely on to say, therefore, he was at the house at the time that these murders took place. So this is something that the defense is going to be scrutinizing very, very carefully. Of course, the probable cause affidavit isn't expected to or required to include all of the ins and outs of all of the information that the police got. The details of the data and the analysis and so forth. But that is information that is going to need to be provided in discovery. And so this is something that I 100% expect Brian Kohberger's team is going to get their own expert to go in and review what exactly did the FBI do here? What exactly were they relying on to be able to create this theory of the location of the cell phone? Without a strong basis, if the defense is able to impeach that methodology, then that link between Brian Kohberger personally, by way of his cell phone, and the movements of that sedan on the nights of the murder, that link is significantly weakened. And so that can potentially open the door for the defense to raise questions about, okay, maybe it was the Elantra, but how do you know it was Brian Kohberger who was in the Elantra? There's another.
So again, let me just be clear with you guys here. Okay. So she is basically saying, if they are not able to, the experts are not able to explain. So there's the if. So I want you to understand that this is not her saying that they're going to be able to refute this. They're going to be able to make this punch a hole in the cell phone evidence. She's just bringing up that they will try to punch a hole in it. It doesn't mean that they will. So, thank you for the super chat, Dawn Burke. She says, I lived in Nevada and there are many dead zones for cell phones. Absolutely. In these remote rural areas, there are many, many. Southwest 4x4 says, I'm confused. If you listen to this video back, you won't be confused. Trust me on that. There's nothing to be confused about. And if you listen to it back and you listen to it slowly, and listen to the message. It's clear and concise. There's nothing that's confusing about this. She's just basically saying if they're not able to tell the defense, if they question the cell phone data and they're not able to intelligently come up with how they tracked it and how they came up with their information, then it could be a problem. But that is a big if. Thank you again for the $10 super chat. Says Char sends in a $10 super chat. I have questions. Can his defense bring up the use of these leaks during the trial since the gag order is in place? I highly, I mean, I'm not 100% sure on it, but I don't think it'll come up unless it's something that is being used. In other words, if a leak is a false piece of information, obviously they won't bring that up. But if a leak is something that the prosecution is using and it gets out there and they're not able to determine how it got out there, I'm going to have to ask Andrea about that. I'll have to ask Joe Murray about that. So I'm not a lawyer, but I don't see leaks. The leaks come into the play. Listen, let me just get that off the screen. Leaks come into play where when you have this information, if it's a leak and it's a legit leak and it's information that the prosecution has, the defense can argue that the jury pool, the jurors, have had an opportunity to see this leaked information. In other words, Andrea is talking about discovery, and there's going to be hundreds, maybe thousands of pages of discovery that is given to the defense by the prosecution. So if in that discovery and it's out there, some of the stuff that's in that discovery, then the defense can argue that, some of these jurors were able to see it online, So that's where the problem comes into play. So you don't want that. Nobody wants that. All right, let me finish up with her because then I want to wrap it up. But thank you to everybody who has given it a thumbs up. If you can, while you're here listening to this, give this video a thumbs up while we listen to the rest of Miss Burkhart. Give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe. And if you're not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing to Crime Time with DutyRon. Danielle, thank you for gifting out those 10 memberships. That's very kind of you. Thank you for gifting out the memberships. I can highlight that on the screen. So thank you for that. I love when people do that. You guys are awesome.
Detail in the probable cause affidavit that tends to cause some concern about the reliability of whatever method it is that the FBI used here. And that's found at page 15 of the affidavit, where it says, investigators found that the 8458 phone did connect to a cell phone tower that provides service to Moscow on November 14th, 2022. But investigators do not believe the 8458 phone was in Moscow on that date. This is potentially a problem, depending on what exactly police mean when they said in the earlier parts of the affidavit that the phone was utilizing cellular resources. Does that mean it connected to a single tower? Does it mean it connected to multiple towers? We don't know at this point. But if it's the same type of connection that they're talking about in this sentence, that it's just the phone connected to a tower in that vicinity, then this line here tells us that connecting with the tower in Moscow is not proof that the phone itself was in Moscow. And this just goes back to what I said earlier about there being all kinds of different reasons for why a cell phone will connect with a particular tower. And proximity is one factor, but it is not the dispositive factor at all. So based on this sentence, it's possible that Mr. Kohberger was, sitting in his apartment in Pullman, and there was some disruption to the service from the nearest tower in Pullman. And as a result, his phone backed up to the next available signal coming from Moscow, Idaho. If this is the type of information, the type of data that the location analysis is based on, then this line just creates huge problems for law enforcement, because if we can't rely on this connection to tell us what the location was on this particular occasion, then what reason do we have to find it reliable for establishing his location at all of the other times that we talked about in the affidavit? So this is potentially very undermining if this is the same type of evidence that was relied on in that FBI analysis to do the recreation of the cell phone's locations.
And again, we do not know the full amount of resources and technology that was used. Trust me, that didn't need to be disclosed in the probable cause affidavit. They just put it in there. They included there was a lot of info on that in that probable cause affidavit that they didn't need to get those arrest warrants. The 4 felony murder first degree arrest warrants and the burglary first degree. So the cards are not all exposed in the probable cause affidavit. Let me just reassure you, there is a treasure trove of additional information that is in the defense's pocket, in the prosecution's pocket, and the defense now, when discovery is fully given over to the defense team, which should be now happening, they'll have a very good overview and look at this evidence. I think we played enough of Andrea Burkhart. I want to thank her for that. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here and hanging out with us tonight on Crime Time with DutyRon. There was a whole bunch more that I did want to I wanted to cover with you guys, but we're already at an hour. I want to just look at the chat real quick and say hello to everybody that's here. Let's do a roll call. Let me know where you're watching from, your city, your state, or your country. And I'd like to say hello to you. If you're new, let me know by saying new. And if you're new, consider subscribing. Smitty, thank you for the super love. She says, DutyRon, great show as always. I'm glad to see someone as fired up as I am about the sources. So frustrating. The sources piss me right the off. This is a no jagaloon zone.
This is a no jagaloon zone.
There you go. Thank you for the super love. I see a lot of people coming in from all over. I got to go and look at the screen and light it up. North Carolina, Magical Mary. Hello from Texas, says Lori Welsh. Thank you for being here from Half Moon Bay, California. JD Barbara. Chanute County, Washington. Thank you for Marcia Armstrong for being here. Thunder Horse, North Carolina. Fruitland, Idaho. Ground Zero for little Michael Monkey Vaughn. Oh, Brenda, sending you love. Thank you for being here from Ohio and Florida. Kaylee, Ontario, Canada, says Mystique, checking in. Hello from Rhode Island. New York, says Nick. What a fascinating show tonight, says JC. Thank you for being a new channel member. Fuzzy Doxy, Birmingham, Alabama. Tom Cusinelli is in New York, fellow brother in blue. Yeah, a lot of people chiming in. Anybody new that's just joining in? I'd like to take a couple of calls. Would anybody be interested in calling in and talking about the sources? I want to circle back to the sources because the sources really piss me off. These unverified sources and speculation. Let me just see something. She talks about crime scene. She talks about her sources here.
So if you've ever been at a crime scene early.
All right. Melmar 21 is new. Thank you for being a new subscriber. Hello to Manuel. I am new as well. Me. Thank you. Thank you, Manuel. I think we did enough. I think we did enough here tonight. And you know what? It's Saturday night. I think we got a lot of information out there. I'm hoping that each and every one of you got a little bit of something from this live stream. Ed Wallace will be joining us sometime soon. I hope and pray. Ed Wallace is still outside of the country. He's doing Army training and he's out there doing his thing. So, you know, and like I said, again, this is an important case. We're at we're starting to, the wheels of justice are moving. This case is so gosh darn important that we need to, hello from the Dominican Republic. Thank you for joining. We need to preserve the evidence. Because human nature, everybody wants things, right? Everybody wants to hear, oh, I want to hear about this. I want to hear, we're nosy by nature, right? Human nature is that we want to know about everything. We want to know what's going on. And for me, this is not a good thing with this. You just can't do it. It's really hurtful to the case. At this point, we're so close. We're so close, but yet so far. Southwest 4x4 Explorers, thank you for the $2 super love. Sister in Red, fire medic from Arizona and Washington, state of Washington. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you for being a Crime Time with DutyRon member and supporter. It's so awesome. Ed, you could just go right into the Ed, you could just come right into the studio. You don't have to call in. All you have to do is take this link. I'll put it in here. And then you could just come right in and you could talk audio if you want. It's up to you, Ed. Let's see. I'll share it right here. Keeps doing the voice calling. Hey, Ed. Ed, why don't you just take the link in the chat and call in to the thing? All right, I'm trying to tell him that he can. Hold on a second. How do I do this? So Ed is a part of my team here, and he could just come right in. But I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna share a link. How do I do that? Hold on. I have these new things that I want to see. It's like, tell me how this sounds. This is like clapping. Pretty cool, right? Gasp. That one's gasp. It's a laugh. Cool stuff. Okay, invite member. What the hell was I trying to do? All right, here it is. Send invite. Email is required. Hold on. I don't want to do that. I want to just copy. All right. I don't know how to do it. I know that there's an easy way for me to do it, but I'm new to this app, so sharing is a little different. But anyways, I want to thank you guys for joining, for hanging out with us here tonight. I know Ed Wallace wanted to call in, but like me holding up the phone, it's just not a great thing. And I don't know how. I'm trying to see to invite guests. Oh, okay, here it is. Add a guest. So I have the link. I'm going to put it in the chat. I finally found it. There it is. So it's in the chat right now. Ed Wallace, if you're in the chat, click on that link, and then it would bring you right into the studio. And if anybody else wants to come on and just say hi, I'm going to just get ready to get out of here. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties, but let's try to do. It's kind of dark. You're not going to see him. I don't have the lights on for him, but let's Popeye cam. So there's Popeye. He's in the cage. It's a little dark over there because I don't have the lights on, but that's my second cam. And look, guys, you can see my notes and you can see my phones for the chat. When I look over here, I got 2 devices for chat and all of my notes. And in addition to those notes, I have some notes here. but I plasted them on this monitor that I have here because I wasn't using my third monitor. So that's a second look into the studio, and that's what we have. All right, so hopefully Ed got the add a guest. That's how I have to do it. I copy a link. I copied it, and then I pasted it again. Let's see if that works. Paste it in the chat. Yeah, so that's Popeye Cam. Who liked the really low Jagaloon? Listen to this one.
This is a no Jagaloon zone. If you're a Jagaloon, here's the door.
That's kind of spooky. This is a no Jagaloon zone.
Jagaloons, get out. Jagaloons, get out.
I love it. Links aren't working in chat, says Wolf's Angel. I don't know. I don't know why. Oh, Ed's here. Holy crap. Holy crap. Ed?
Yes, I'm here.
How are you, brother? What's going on over there?
Good.
So how are you doing? Everybody loves Ed Wallace, and now it's what, 9:30 in the morning over in Ed Wallace land. How's everything going over there?
Good. You're going good.
Right.
So I've been watching the show. Woke up while you just came on, and I was watching the show, and yeah, it's very frustrating. All the sources. Okay. Yeah. The only sauce I want is on my spaghetti. Okay. This is ridiculous, and I don't know if it seems to me like they must know, but I don't think they care about the impact that these things are going to have on this trial.
And that's the most unfortunate part is, like, as we spoke last week when you were on with us last Saturday, she's been doubling down, and not just her. And I got to be fair here because all the networks are picking up on this source nonsense, and they're saying unverified. She says that she has 3 sources in regards to her latest round of information that she put out. And again, like you said, if these are law enforcement sources that are leaking this information, they should be punished. They should be, this is contempt of court. It's criminal contempt of court by going against the court order of, this gag order. But if it's a civilian, that's also a violation of this gag order. And it's just not a good look.
No, and any defense attorney worth their salt watching this stuff is going to use it. If they're going to, you watch, mark my words. I said this earlier in the chat. Mark my words. This is going to get into the court because it's just going to be used to muddy the waters.
Yeah, and that's the disgusting part is that, criminal defense attorneys, Joe Murray included, he'll tell us this every day, all day, that when these are ground balls for them. They take this stuff and run with it because all they have to do, all their job is to create reasonable doubt, create some doubt.
It.
And that's
in one person.
Oh my gosh. Allie D is on. I think she's probably got a question for us, but her mic is muted. So as soon as she unmutes the mic, I'll add her on and we'll get a question. Ed, I'm sure this is going to be directed to you. Hi, Allie and new friends.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you, ladies? What's any good questions in regards to this sourced information coming out?
Yeah, so I had New York Fashion Week today, and the ladies I've been friends with, and they didn't know about this case, and they're moms, and they understand, and they were like mind blown when I explained it to them about Ashley, about the coverage, and they were like, how this case could get thrown out. It could do. I'm like, I know. How could you even go on air and say something so gruesome, for example, about the fingers? I don't want to go into depth. Right. But in your opinion, after her latest coverage, what do you think? Could she get in trouble? I believe yes. When it goes to trial for things that she's leaked, because there's no sources that she's naming. If they're unnamed sources, it could be X, Y, and Z.
So I think what you're trying to ask is, could Banfield get into trouble? again, Ed, we know the news, it's their job to report stories, right? So I think that's teetering on, the right to the freedom of press, right? But when it comes to interviewing sources that potentially are law enforcement related, or somebody who, in this gag order, it's pretty specific, Ed. It says anyone who has knowledge of this case. So what's your thoughts on that, Ed?
Well, I mean, they have some protections as being members of the press.
Obviously.
But that doesn't mean that like a defense attorney can't make a motion to the judge to have brought in and deposed under oath to see who the sources of this information is, so that they could make an argument in court that the case has been prejudiced against her client because of all of this information that she's been putting out, and to see if these her sources are in fact law enforcement in violation of his gag order.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. So you're right. I mean, there's a potential there for that to occur, depending on how far this goes. And this has been going on for 3 days. Over a week. Not 3 days. This has been going on for a long time. We had this conversation just a week ago, and I think every day since then, there's been different stories. Sometimes 2 a day, 2 or 3 a day. So.
And I wanted to add in, I think it's the correct term, but it's journalistic ethics, or some standard they have to follow. And if that is, if she doesn't follow that, she's at the risk of a job loss, because they have to follow certain things. And if they violate it, their job is at risk. And I know that for a fact. And I don't know, I'm just disgusted with what has been let out and not having sources that she's naming. And I just find it truly heartbreaking for the families, the ones that can't speak. And it's not right.
No.
Yeah, we agree. We're not going to argue with you on that. This is about the victims' families now. The victims now, they do not have a voice, and they cannot speak for themselves. So this is a big issue for me, ethically and morally. When you see this kind of reporting, some people love it and will cheer her on. There'll be cheerleaders in the background cheering her on, because again, human nature, we want to hear about this stuff. Well, what price does this come at? It comes at a heavy price. And Ed, you said it well in the last live stream. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That's right. That's right. And as for journalistic ethics, that's dead. That's been dead for a while now. The journalism is not neutral. It's not fair and balanced anymore. It doesn't purport to just deliver the news and let people decide for themselves what the news means to them. Okay, they've taken side in our national discourse in every aspect of our life. Okay, so this is all, what I see here is all about sensationalism, is clicks on the internet, getting hits.
Right. And views and whatnot,
Mhm.
and ratings.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me sick, because right after Ron said that, I was about to say morally, like as a person, it turns my stomach. I don't know how someone could say, oh, ratings, views over their sense of morals or compassion or empathy, and just covering this case. It's just not right.
It doesn't pass the shoe on the other foot test.
Yeah.
Right. Because if it was Banfield's family that were devastated by these horrific homicides, I'm sure she would have another song to sing.
Oh, exactly. And Ed, by the way, the other day you made my day when you were like, oh, she should take Collins. And you're like, no, she would be hanging up. We would have no chance. And I was laughing so hard because it's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because she cuts everyone off and doesn't let them give their whole opinion.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
When it's not on the same wavelength as she wants, boom, you're gone.
Yeah. She's cut off many of her guests, and it was rude to many that I have seen personally myself. And then I've had people call in or send messages into DutyRon.com. Hey, did you see this? Hey, did you see this? Banfield cut this one off. And so, when you have somebody on as a guest on your show, you want to give them the time to talk. And you know, when I first started doing this stuff, I didn't really have it too well. And I'm still learning. I'm learning every day. You know, Ed and I. It's like each time we go live, we learn something new. And I like to give people the opportunity to say what they're going to say within reason. You know, within reason, because you know these shows have time limits and so forth. So there is sometimes where they have to cut guests off due to time constraints, and we get that.
Right. And I learn new things every day. So do my friends, and they don't want to go on camera.
Yeah. No,
Amy, do you want to go on? No, they're too afraid.
I understand. There's 1,500.
Don't be afraid.
And it's fine.
We don't bite.
Yeah. This is
I know we came from New York Fashion Week, so they're like, I don't know what people are gonna think.
Are you in the city now, or you're home?
I'm in the city now. Yeah, all 10 of us are in the same hotel room.
You go. So that's being held at Bryant Park.
No, we had New York Fashion Week. We're at. I'm not going to say the hotel for safety reasons.
But where's the venue at though?
Marriott.
Okay.
Very good. Dr. Ed Moskowitz is chiming in. Hey, Ali, thank you so much for you and your friends for hanging out with us and coming in and asking these questions. We greatly appreciate you being
You're
here.
welcome. They subscribed, and we also tried to send $100 super chat. We all chipped in, and her Apple ID password wouldn't work. Just to send it to you and Ed. We just wanted to, you know, appreciate you guys, and they never saw something like this and were like flabbergasted. And I was like, yeah, you guys have to watch the news.
Right. Well, stay safe in New York and enjoy. If you need any recommendations for good Italian food or Chinese food, let me know.
Yeah, will do. 100%. Thank you so much.
Bye, ladies. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, there they go.
Bye.
All right. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I'm surprised Ed Sleuthie didn't call in and question us up and down.
Hang on, Sleuthie.
Sleuthie, hang on. Yeah. Hey, Ed, what did you think of these little reactions that we have here? Drum.
Take my wife, please. What is it? You're like Kramer from Banfield, right? You got the old studio from what was it? The Merv.
Merv Griffin show.
Merv Griffin show, and then you have all these things in the back.
Yeah, we're having a really big show here tonight. Howard Cosell. There we go. Ed, see, please take my wife. Anyways,
Henny Youngman, right? Henny Youngman.
Exactly. And we saw that in Scarface, right? He was in the club, and that's when they shot him up over there, and he was listening.
It's like Rodney Dangerfield too. I love Rodney Dangerfield too, right? You know, I remember seeing him at his club in New York. He said, you know, my wife the other day, she told me to take me someplace on vacation I've never been, so I brought her to the kitchen.
Awesome. How's things going over there in Bangkok? How much longer are you there, and what's the next? What's our next leg of the tour?
So I finish up on Friday of this upcoming week, and then and I fly home on Saturday, and unfortunately I'm out the door again on Monday, the 20th, heading to India.
Wow. Will you have a good internet connection in India, we hope?
Should be. You know, it's an American brand hotel that I'll be at. So it should be good.
Ed, what do you think of this new Melon app? And Southwest 4x4 Explorer said Ed travels too much, so much. Well, he's on business. This is part of his job. This is what he does.
This is how I get paid.
What do you think of this Melon app, Ed? It's a little different.
Yeah, I'm up in the air right now. I haven't made up my mind yet. But you know, yeah. I know how the other one operates, but this is fine. Yeah. It has some of the same features, right?
Right. So a little different dashboard, but it's the same concept. You don't need to download anything. It's just a link. I'm going to add you as a team member, just like what I had in the StreamYard thing. So you don't have to, you can just like come right into the studio. I just noticed that I don't have you in there. So it's going to be an email invite. I'll wait till you get back in the States to send you the invite, because we don't want to have any you know what happening.
Yeah, no, nobody hacking into our accounts.
I don't want to say anything about that, Ed.
This is a no Jagaloon zone.
This is a no Jagaloon zone.
Okay, step away from the toys, Ron.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
Well, I see you still have that one.
Of course.
Oh, hell no. Oh, hell.
Oh,
All right. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Ed, yeah, so we're going to just follow this closely. I wanted to also mention to the audience, because a lot of people are talking about the Murdaugh trial. Have you been, I know you're out of the country, have you been able to follow it? There's been a lot of crime scene and evidence collection in that trial and so forth. Do you, I know you.
yeah, I was watching it. Yeah, I was watching it because there was a lot of issues that I talked about in the Idaho case that are actually coming up in that case in terms of crime scene standards and practices and wearing tie-vac and safeguarding the scene. And so what the defense attorney is doing is throwing a lot of stuff at proverbial stuff at the wall, if you know what I'm talking about, to see what sticks.
Yeah.
Now, you know, you can say all these things about well, this protocol wasn't followed and this standard wasn't followed and they didn't do this and they didn't do that. But you have to prove there was an impact. What was the impact of them not doing that? Did it hurt the evidence? Did it taint the evidence? And if you can't do that, if you can't, you know, get your expert to come up and say, hey, this was the impact of that. You know, it damaged this evidence or it damaged that evidence. And I don't think in many of the instances that I was watching that the defense attorney is going to be able to do that.
Right. Yeah. And there's so many of our followers and people who are part of this community that is following closely the Murdaugh case. And Jeff F says it resembles a lot of the O.J. Simpson case over again with the Murdaugh trial. I'm going to try to highlight that. There it is. Jeff F., thank you for that comment. He says O.J. Simpson all over again with the Murdaugh case.
Yeah, but that video they got with his voice, that is huge. Okay. You know, because he says he wasn't there.
Right.
So, you know, I don't know how they're going to overcome that.
Right. You're talking about the TikTok video that he did, or yeah, right. Kitty KU says, I watch it live constantly. Think, oh my God, where was Ed? So that's what a lot of people listen. I didn't bog Ed down with all the messages that came into DutyRon.com, but yes, I've been getting overwhelmed with, hey, are you going to cover this? Are you going to talk about it? And I think that the prosecution is going to be wrapping up this week, if not Monday. So we soon shall see. But Ed and I, it doesn't mean that we can't go back and circle back into it. A couple of things happening. Dawn Burke says, where is the splatter of blood on the clothes? I'm not either way, just asking. I'm not sure. You're talking about the Murdaugh trial, or is this something else? Because now I just put us down the path of a whole different case. I don't know if she's referring to Kohberger with blood on his clothing, or are they referring to the Murdaugh? Dawn, if you could just specify.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. So. But anyways, listen, Ed, I know it's early in the morning. You probably did you get to have breakfast yet or no?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
nice.
All right. Went downstairs, met the crew, had breakfast.
Yeah. So how many people, I know it varies, and how many people do you usually do these training exercises with? Is it a group of like is it more than 10, or is it just a smaller intimate group?
Are you talking about, well, my staff and I, it's a total of 4 of us, including me.
Oh, okay.
And then, okay. And so then we have 24 participants, 3 translators, and other assets that we utilize when we're doing our work here.
Awesome. Yeah, so it was the Murdaugh case that she was referring to, Ed. So that super chat was
well, you know, again, if you the first analysis of the clothing by the hired bloodstain pattern analyst said that he didn't see anything, and then upon second review, found microscopic blood stains consistent with what we call back spatter, tiny sub-millimeter blood stains that were projected back from the gunshot wound entrance and impacted the clothing. And now we spoke about this when I did the bloodstain Forensic Friday. And yes, Angie, I got that, by the way. And so what happens is when you shoot a person, you have when the bullet goes in, blood will come back towards the direction the bullet traveled from, and it will be a short distance but a wide pattern and create sub-millimeter stains on any surfaces that are directly in the flight path of those blood stains being projected backwards. And when it impacts clothing, it shoots through the entire fiber weave of the clothing, not just sitting on the top of the fiber on the outside of the clothing. And so, again, it depends there's a lot of things that can impact the finding of this, but I believe it was found on some of his clothing, and it appears that from testimony and so forth that he had changed his clothing between the incident and the time that he was giving statements to the police.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, again, we could have chimed in if Ed was here in country. We would have been covering this day to day, probably. I think, Ed, there was so much to talk about in regards to this case. And Josh is saying that you are a badass, and everybody in the chat is saying, yeah, we need Ed. So hold on, Sleuthie Goosey needs the link. But before we send the link to Sleuthie Goosey, and then we're going to wrap it up, I want to send 10 free memberships. So if you want a free membership, there's two things you got to do. You got to subscribe here on DutyRon. You got to enable membership gifting in your portal or in your within your app, and you also got to follow us on social media, either Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or TikTok. So I'm going to send out 10 free memberships courtesy of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. It's our way of saying thanks for being subscribers. We're at 159,000 subscribers. We're going to hit 160, and when we hit that 160, Ed and I are going to give something away. We don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something special. So we're going to do that. So if you want a free membership, hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon in the chat, and then we will do it in about 20 seconds. Ed doesn't have his countdown clock, but we're going to just hold on. But I could do something cool. I could put the reaction thing, right? Yeah, so that's what we'll do. Let me shut that off. That's what's going to play when we give away the memberships. So let's look for the hashtags in the, there they are. Hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. Looks like a lot of people want to get memberships, Ed. So here we go. 10 coming your way. Make sure you guys give it a thumbs up and like and subscribe. So there we go. 10 free memberships from Crime Time with DutyRon. Clapping. And a little whistling. Haley Mouse was gifted a membership. Fuzzy Doxy is already a member. Candy Cane was gifted a membership by Ed and Ron. Angel Coleman was gifted a membership, and also there's a couple. Marsha Armstrong. Oh wow, Marsha, thank you for being a member now of Crime Time with DutyRon. Armstrong, much always here supporting. So that was a great one. I'm so glad that she got that membership. So congratulations to the 10. Get Sleuthie on. I want to hear her thoughts, says Emily. Wow, she's being pushy, don't you think? Boom.
Is that for the football game tonight?
Yeah, it's happening tonight. Yes. Well,
wait. You're Saturday, right? You're Saturday.
I just went
Saturday evening.
I went with it. Yes,
Yeah.
It's still Saturday night.
Yeah, because it's Sunday here. So
yeah, it's still. Add a guest. I'll do it again. Copy the link. Here you go, Sleuthie. And then she's going to have the last thought, the last word, Sleuthie. And if she gets fresh, I'll cut her off.
What? No, Sleuthie, never.
Not our Sleuthie. Let me just send her a message on Twitter because that's how I communicate with her. Hold on, Sleuthie. Where is she? So, Ed, talk to somebody about some of the food that you're eating over there or something.
Oh, she's Thai. The food here is, comes in various degrees of spiciness and heat. Some things the locals eat, just light me on fire. And I go immediately to tears and nasal discharge. It's just like, how the hell do these people eat this? Wow. And the local beer is pretty good. The history here is also very good. So if any of you ever watched the movie Bridge on the River Kwai, that's just about 2 hours away from me, and we do a tour over there, and then there's you can actually see the bridge because that was a true story for those of you who don't know, that World War II episode of British POWs that were forced to make a bridge for the Japanese army for transporting of their weapons and personnel. Anyhow, and beautiful scenery here. There's a lot of expats running around here. You can see them. You can hear them too when they speak English. A lot of Europeans. It's a big business community. There are more skyscrapers here in Bangkok than there are in Manhattan, and the skyline is unbelievable. Visited several Buddhist temples. They were very nice to see as well. Nice. Very nice. As far as predominantly like I would say about 90, maybe 95% of the country is Buddhist, and then a small section in the southern part of Thailand that connects with Malaysia have a large population of Muslim people that were originally that section of the land that was disputed between Thailand and Malaysia, and then they came to an agreement. So the Malaysians gave that portion of the land to Thailand, and Thailand incorporated it into their country. And so when they incorporated, then the indigenous people that lived there now became Thai instead of Malaysian, and there's some troubles down there. They didn't want to accept that.
Wow.
So.
Interesting. When I think of the Buddhist temples, I think of, how rich that, it goes back thousands of years, right? Hundreds of thousands of years. But I also think of the movie Hangover, where Alan got beat up with the stick by the old Buddhist guy because he was talking. You got to be quiet.
Yeah.
So yeah, think about that. But Sleuthie's here. Let's bring her in. I'm going to stop being funny and try to put some humor into this stuff. As soon as she gives the thumbs up, I'm going to put her on. And yep, I got it. There she is. Hey, how are you, Sleuth?
It took me
Good
forever
evening.
to get in here, but then it looks the same.
Yeah, it's like StreamYard on steroids.
I kept hitting join. It was like, you have to tell us who you are. So, but I'm here.
Oh,
I thought you were gonna
so I'll have to take the authentication. Like you had to authenticate who you were?
No, I just had to type my name, and I'm used to just
Yeah.
joining.
Oh. Ed, is that what happened with you too, Ed?
Is he breaking up?
Yeah, he's in another country, so
I broke him.
Oh boy. We're hearing him like
Poor Ed.
Poor Ed. He was doing good up until this point. So
It was like me getting added, like overloaded his computer.
right. It'll probably correct itself. But so did you have questions about Murdaugh or about the Idaho? I think it was the Idaho, right?
Yeah, I don't have questions about Murdaugh. I don't know anything about that case, so I've just been watching it like as a juror, and I appreciate that for this case. But the sources thing, I felt like I'm very glad that you said something. A lot of people were wondering if you were when they saw this live, because it's bad because I feel like we go to the news as like a source. Like they're supposed to be the source that we know has legitimate sources.
Right.
So now I feel like I can't even read the paper because I'm not going to get anything new, or unless like when they put the experts, if they put experts on, that's one thing, but I don't know. I don't see the point in it or how it's possibly going to help at all. And I'm disappointed, really.
You know, Sleuthie, it's a real problem for me because, look, it's one thing to go on Twitter and talk on Twitter and have conversations in the spaces. That's not hurting the case because most of these jurors or the potential jury pool are not listening to these private, Discord chats and so forth. Have at it behind the scenes. Think tanks and all of that stuff are great. But when you have News Nation and Law and Crime Network and ABC News and Nightline and 48 Hours and all of these news outlets are jumping on these unverified sources, it's just it's a toxic combination of really bad stuff. It doesn't do any good. And if these sources are outed and found out to be former or current law enforcement, they should get reprimanded and be brought up on either departmental charges and or criminal charges. Because if you are part of law enforcement, whether it's ex or current law enforcement, and you're participating in this criminal behavior, then I'm sorry, I got to bleep myself. Then you're a scumbag. And I use the F word on that because for me, we're looking at justice to be served here, right? Brian Kohberger, innocent until proven guilty. I fucking hate to say that. I didn't even bleep that out, but I hate to say it, but that is what he's afforded, and we have to honor that. But at the end of the day, Sleuthie, why give this guy some help? Do you want to help this guy? Do you want it's like these women that send him love letters in jail, like Chris Watts and all these serial killer, these crazy killers.
No.
So we have guys like Chris Watts coming on and having fan clubs and people coming in and sending him letters and so forth. And now we're hearing about that with Brian Kohberger as well. We're hearing about people sending him fan mail. Give me a break.
Well, and it's like we spent weeks and weeks bringing up this whole like conflict and how it's going to get him off and things like that. And I just don't understand being able to see how that would affect it, but not what you're doing. Right. So we even have the state who put out that entire document that had like 10 pages worth of cases as examples where the Supreme Court has overturned felony convictions because they could not get a fair trial because the jury was not impartial because of the news interviewing witnesses, putting out their statements that were made that were supposed to be just for court, And so I don't see how you could think that one thing would be a problem but not another. And it instead of like admitting some type of accountability and saying we're going to do better, and we're going to if we can't put out a source, it's typically because it's like you said, it's either illegal or it's a lie, right? I mean, if I'm hearing it, it's either illegal and I don't need to know it, or it's a lie and I also don't need to know it. So, and so like. He's literally fighting me and he's way too strong.
I can see that.
I just don't want him on camera. He's being ridiculous.
Right.
So, but
I'll take you off. We can still hear you.
This is my life. So, but I just, and what's even more sad about it is that even if they just briefly talk about it, right. In one little segment, it goes around and around and around, and there's other articles that are being written, and like it's this like nasty hole, and especially when you can trace back the source,
right? Yeah,
it's even worse.
That's again, it's the ongoing problem, and it's going to continue to go on because outlets like News Nation and others have a job to do, and their producers want them to put out this information. Again, like Ed said, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yeah. And in this case, we're looking at 4 murders. This is not a simple assault. This is not a domestic violence case, even though those are very, those cases are just as important. But when we're talking about 4 people brutally slain here, and a perpetrator in custody. Like I said, a month and a half ago, we had nobody in custody. And there was conversations that were happening on these spaces and all over the place on, Facebook and on YouTube, that the case is going to go cold. Even her own dad, even Steve, was saying, I don't want this case to go cold. I don't want people to forget about it. Yeah,
Right.
I get that you want to have the story out there and people talking about it when you don't have a suspect in custody. Now you have a suspect in custody and you want to jeopardize the prosecution, and it's a big problem. It's a big problem. Anyways, I tried to get Ed Wallace back in. I want to thank you. Well, I want to thank you, Sleuthie, for coming on. I know you got mom duties and you're now in a wrestling match with your, child.
I lose all
Yeah.
of them. I lose them all.
But thank you so much for coming on here tonight and asking the questions. And, listen, we're not going to always make everybody happy. And that's the thing, is that we're not always going to make people happy. But at the end of the day, we got to do what's right. We got to do what's right. And here we'll talk about education. We'll talk about behind the scenes investigations and what the potentials could be going forward. But we're never going to sit and I have tons of people who reach out to me and say, I have information. And I tell them, that information should go straight to the police, should go straight to the prosecutor, should go straight to the FBI. I'm not the person to give information to. If you have information, you give it back to law enforcement. Sleuthie, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We greatly appreciate you. I know you took your camera off, so now I can hear.
I felt like I was going to make your computer blow up from having to go switch it back between getting us off the screen.
I was trying to protect your child from being on.
Yeah, I think he wants to see himself, but we talked about this, and I said you cannot be on the. I do not want people. I mean, I'm grateful that everybody's listening, wants to talk, but I don't need him on camera, and he doesn't understand. So,
right, yeah. So everyone's saying poor Ed because he doesn't have the internet. Again,
that was convenient, Ed.
Yeah. That's when you came up and you had a whole list of notes to ask him, questions to ask him. But you know what? The good news is he's not going anywhere. He'll be back again, and we can do this again.
Yes.
All right, an hour and 45 minutes. I think that's enough. On behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, and now Sleuthie's here with us, we want to say thank you for being here. And hopefully, if you guys have any questions or any type of comments, leave them down below in the comment section. Make sure you're subscribed and follow Sleuthie on Twitter. You can always go over there and engage with her because she's active daily on Twitter. Some of you might not like some of the things that she talks about on Twitter. You might not like some of the things that I talk about here, but we can never make everybody happy. And you know what? Conversations have to be had when you want to talk about these cases. And part of the sleuthing and part of the following investigations is doing the checks and balances. And I think that you do a good job of that. So thank you for that.
And so do you. Thank you.
All righty, guys. So
say good night, since you had to be apart. Say good night.
All right. You're gonna let him.
Good night, sis.
Good night. Good night, bud. All right. We'll see you guys all soon. Peace and love from DutyRon, and thank you for joining, everybody. Make sure you hit the thumbs up if you don't mind. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all one word, DutyRon. And if you're not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing to Ed and I here on YouTube. This is our 24 hours a day, 7 days a week go-to platform. And we want to thank everyone who has positively engaged. And again, I saw a super chat go by and it was fast. Lou Lamarico, thank you so much for being a channel member and the $5 super chat. Greatly appreciated it. Thank you for your support and all of the love that we get here on Crime Time with DutyRon. Good night from New York City, and we'll see you soon. Peace and love.